All right, let's move on. Nuggets-Wizards last night. Denver was down 2 with 10 seconds to go. They had numbers on the fast break, but everyone decided to run to one side and all of them to the three-point line. Needless to say, not great spacing there. Denver failed to score and lost the game. So here's what Nuggets head coach Michael Malone and Jamal Murray said after the game.
We had a layup. It's a 3-on-1 break. All Michael Porter's got to do is cut to the basket. All Jamal Murray's got to do is push the ball and attack. But we didn't get that. We got a Facu 3, and obviously it didn't go in.
4-on-1, somebody should go to the rim. I thought Mike was going to the rim. He shot for 3. He might have thought I was shooting it, and I should have shot it. I gave Facu a bad pass. I think if I'm going to stop at the 3, I got to shoot it. And if Mike's running the lane, you got to go to the rim, especially when there's other guys behind him. So I guess it's just a tough play where we didn't know what we were doing. We just got to score.
Jamal Murray's tweet after the game speaks for itself. Clearly not great spacing, not a great situation, as he alluded to. So, Perk, I got a couple of questions for you. Are you retweeting or deleting this from Murray? Do you like this particular approach from him, okay, putting it on social media? And what do you think of the late-game execution by the Nuggets?
Well, first of all, I'm deleting it. I would have never tweeted it. You cannot throw your teammates under the bus. That's the first thing. And you're a leader. They're paying you $30 million a year. You're the Robin of the team. These are young guys. The guys that he put on this tweet at that angle was a second Michael Porter Jr., who's a young player in his second year, a guy that was an undrafted rookie. Like, you got to lead by example, and that's not the way to do it. Secondly, I see why RJ didn't work out in Denver, because if they developing these type of habits and not having winning plays, knowing RJ being a champion, he would have slashed to the basket. Is this what they're teaching over there? Yes, it is, because I blame the analysts, right? Because for the simple fact, teams are rehearsing this day in and day out in training camp and in practices. Hey, when you get out, run to the three-point line. It looked like they was allergic to running into the paint, and it's a shame.
Okay, so one, that's not the reason why I didn't work out in Denver. I was 200 years old when I was in Denver. This is what I will say about this.
I was giving you a compliment.
I appreciate it, Perk. But look, he needs to delete this. You know why? Because Jamal Murray, the first 30 games of the season, really struggled. He really struggled. So to all of a sudden start throwing blame, and look, I don't think he was throwing blame when he first said it. They both said Michael Porter. Coach said it, and then Jamal Murray said Michael Porter. There's 3 people there, and you only heard Michael Porter's name. Now, look, Monte Morris could have drove. Like, multiple people could have done different things. And my biggest thing about this is, like, yes, you teach players to run to the corner, young players, but ultimately, Jamal Murray is one of the best young players in this league. He is one of the best guards in this league. If it wasn't for his slow start, he'd have an opportunity to be an all-star this year. So I love Jamal Murray's game, but part of that becomes mistakes and growth. Here to call them out on, not him out, but just to play on Twitter and to say, oh, that's crazy. Well, look, there's other layers to that. It's a young player. Jamal, you really struggled the first 30 games of the season. I don't see any of your teammates throwing out tweets like, God, I can't believe he missed this shot, or man, we need Jamal Murray to play better. Like, these are things that you want to keep in-house. Everyone's frustrated. I think that was emotional. Jamal Murray will be better, but ultimately, when you look at that a lot has to do with the entire group. There were 3 people over there that should have gone in for a layup, that had an opportunity for a layup, and you just got to take it. But Jamal Murray's got to be better. Like, it's disappointing, because I know that he is a great leader. I know that he's a great young player. And I think that tweet was just emotions.
So, Richard, let me ask you this, because you mentioned growth a lot there, and you mentioned how much you like Jamal Murray, and we all like Jamal Murray. What we saw in the bubble from him was incredible. But doesn't the growth part also apply to his leadership abilities and styles, right? Like, this is the first time over the last year or so where it's really been his team as the vocal leader, right? Like, Jokic is the best player, but he is the vocal leader here.
Yeah, but you don't have to be a vocal leader via Twitter, right? Like, that's not how you're a vocal leader. That's not it. Because ultimately, these things can cause little bitty tensions. Because what happens the next time you make a mistake and Michael Porter Jr. runs to Twitter and points out something? Then all of a sudden it looks like, oh, well, you can't be talking to your star like that. Oh, you shouldn't do it. You got to set a precedence of like, hey, this way. I wasn't even a big fan of just saying, oh, well, Michael Porter Jr. should have gone. There were 3 people over there. Name all 3, because all 3 people are guilty for not running in for a layup. Anybody could have gone and got that layup layup. So to single out now, Michael Porter Jr. was the first one. That's why he was in the deep corner. So I kind of see your point, but ultimately there were multiple players there that could have gone and got the layup. So to call it out, to do these things, it doesn't help.
Well, I strongly believe it's in desperate need that they need some virtual learning over there on how to be leaders all across the board. Because I'm going to say this. Just a couple weeks ago, Mike Malone in the post-game interview, he said, hey, Jokic is balling. I need other guys to step up and give him some help. I thought he should have kept that in-house. That's something that you talk about behind closed doors. Usually if you're a coach, you come out and say, hey, our team just has to play better overall. You don't pinpoint and say, hey, one person is doing his job and others are not, because you could pinpoint certain areas where Jokic is not as good on defense, where he's getting blown by on pick and roll coverages. So at the end of the day, I think they need a coming to Jesus meeting all across the board, including Mike Malone.
All right, so growth across the board, perhaps, for everyone there in Denver. A learning experience. We'll see.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.